there's tremendous danger in Bob's face and physical presence. There's an unpredictability, there's a don't mess with me, and you never know which part of that personality is going to surface.
Before I met Mitch, and I thought he appeared to have this very gruff exterior that covered this poetic heart. And then, of course, I met him, and that is exactly who he is.
My fascination with him comes from the tension between his own sensitivity and delicacy and his cultural sense of what is macho, because you can feel these two elements at war.
H-A-T-E. It was with this left hand that old brother Cain struck the blow that laid his brother low. L-O-V-E. The right hand, friends, the hand of love. Now watch and I'll show you the story of life.
Get up in the morning and go to work, and they paint a face on you or glue a mustache on it. They tell you what jokes to say, and you say them, and that's it. And you turn around and come home at night.
When Mitch came along, a lot of producers didn't really know what to do with a guy that was just all man. He was always strong, and women liked his looks a lot.
Glad you don't suffer from those handicaps.
No, I don't.
You know why you missed me?
Because I hate you so my hand shook.
Your hand shook. Not because you hate me. Put the gun down, Thor.
Women liked him because he was vulnerable, and he showed his vulnerability by keeping himself in all the time. Every woman that I know is always saying, I'm the one that can get it out of him. They love to see that thing buried in somebody because they say they're the ones that can bring him out of himself and, as a result, feel that they've conquered something.
Putting together what happened, what I guess must have happened. Thor, it's all coming back. Strong and clear, and there's an answer in it. There's something about me that explains everything.
I remember Raoul Walsh used to get a scene set up, you know, interiors, that is. And we'd walk through it or talk through it, and Raoul'd say, okay, you got it. He'd say, right. He'd say, okay, roll him. And he'd turn around and walk away. And he'd roll a Bull Durham cigarette on the blind side. I guess all the tobacco would fall out. He'd light it, and paper'd go up. He'd roll another one, the same thing. Roll another one. He'd keep firing off these pieces of paper. Finally, there's a silence, and he'd turn around and say, is it over? Oh, cut it. He'd say, how'd it go? He'd say, well, the lamp fell off the table. Look natural? You put it back? Say, yeah, okay. He'd rip out the page. That's one from Macros. 4 Academy Awards, never watched the scene.
I worked with Bob on 4 films. He was always contained. He was born, I think, with what we call film-style acting. A really fine film actor, as opposed to a stage actor, does not give a performance. He creates a person, and is that person. Mitchum was one of the very best at that. He gave everything. He said it as though it had just come out of his mind at that time, exactly the way he felt it.
He makes acting seem like it's absolutely real. There's no acting to it at all. It's like falling off a log for him.
Bob would never be caught acting. He just is.
He's playing men very close to his apparent soul. He knows who he is. And then when it's a wonderful role and he gets to relax, out come these goodies that keep you always wondering what he's going to do next.
It's a job. You know, I've said it before, and I repeat it. One of the greatest movie stars that ever lived was Rin Tin Tin. That was a mother dog. So it can't be too much of a trick to it.
Mitchum, like a lot of guys that grew up at the time that he grew up, have certain ideas of what masculinity is and what, you know, what's appropriate for a behavior for a man. And acting, like, I don't know, dancing or certain areas of the arts seemed inappropriate to certain men. It seemed to them like a slightly sissified profession. It certainly always seemed that way to Mitchum.
That sort of He-Man quality of Mitch's, which is real and which is there, I mean, he's very much a man's man, is certainly a part of his personality, but it covers, I think, a lot of anxiety and a certain amount of fear and terror from his childhood.
My father was from South Carolina. He was killed when I was 2 years old in a railroad accident.
I never saw my father, but Robert had just enough time, a little over 2 years, to feel his presence, to know him. And of course, when he was killed, he was left with a great sense of loneliness that I think still pervades the inner Robert Mitchum.
My mother, she was a Norwegian immigrant, went to work as a line type operator for the Bridgeport Post, and wound up in the editorial room. She was a self-taught musician. She could read and write music. She played the piano. She wrote, and she wrote very well.
Even at the early ages, he showed a great punching power, and he got into trouble in school and was expelled.
Times were pretty hard then. He lived with relatives mostly because they were poor.
We were shipped down to my grandmother's farm in Delaware. Now, this was a double abandonment in Bob's eyes.
My father was 12 years old. He left home and hit the rails, mainly because it was the Depression, 1929, and was one less mouth to feed.
I remember times of intense loneliness, and I was far from hearth and home and friends. For some reason or other, I enjoyed that. You used to cruise along on a flat car or a box car and look in the lighted windows of all the houses and envied the comfort people had there. And of course, you met a lot of blue-jawed characters with wanted stamped all over them, too. My sister was living in New York, and so we moved up to New York. I had to go back to high school, so I went to school for one season at the Harran High School, and it was at that time when I took off and wound up on the chain gang in Savannah. I was 15, and they picked me up in Georgia and hauled me in as a dangerous and suspicious character with no visible means of support. And that was the answer to homelessness in those days. They gave you a job. It cost them 38 cents a day to feed you, and they rented you out to the county for $2.50 a day. And I got time on the Georgia chain gang, and I saw no particular future in that, so I ambled off.
The chain had worn a hole in his leg, and that's when he went through the swamps and into South Carolina, and the infection set in, and that's what almost cost him his leg. My mother was in Delaware, so I came back after Savannah to Delaware. And that year went down to 18 below zero, and the outhouse door was frozen shut, and I said, I got to find a better place. So I came to California. Bob and I rode freight trains out here, and we lived with my sister Julie, who was a nightclub entertainer.
Bob was what I would call a beach bum at one time. He had a physique that wouldn't stop. You know, he had shoulders that were bigger than anybody's I ever knew.
We were lying on the beach when my sister Julie came down and said, hey guys, why don't you join the Long Beach Players Guild? No way. Then she said, you know, we have 60 girls and only 4 guys in the guild. Well, we joined immediately.
The next thing I know, Bob is acting as Duke Mantee in Petrified Forest, and he was just a natural, an absolute natural.
All of a sudden, Bob disappeared again, and when he came back, he was married to Dorothy. I met Dorothy
She was 14, I was 16. I was fresh out of the chain gang, which was some cause for concern with her mother and her friends. And I said I'd be back, and I came back, and eventually we came on out to California on an all-American bus.
Both Bob and I started working at Lockheed Aircraft. We were not trained factory workers. He knew very little about it, and it certainly didn't suit his temperament.
I finally went blind. And they put me in the hospital and checked me out. And the doctor said, there's nothing wrong with you. And I argued. I said, you don't go blind for nothing wrong. And so he just told me, he said, you just don't like the job. He said, it's your choice. He said, you can either lose your mind or quit your job. So I quit the job. Became a movie actress instead.
I've seen that old buzzard before.
You mean the one that took our guns?
Yeah. I can't remember where.
June 1942, I saw Bill Boyd, and he said, yeah, he's kind of mean around the eyes. Went up to Kernville, California, started falling off horses, playing cowboys and Indians, riding around all day, getting a free lunch. So that was it. I played heavies and westerns, and I had a bass baritone voice.
You don't know what it's like to be hunted and hounded with never a minute's rest. My face is plastered on every post office and livery stable west of the Pecos.
Drop that gun, Mason.
I think in 1 year, somebody told me I did 17 pictures, but I was just jumping from one place to another.
Age, ever been convicted of a felony? Sit down in that chair. Hey, what's this thing for? Take your picture. Front and profile. Yeah, but what for? We send one to every sheriff and law agency in the country, just to make sure we don't get any ringers. Oh, well, if I'm gonna have my picture taken, I better get a shave. A close shave at that.
Work a day or 2 days here, a couple of days here. I think I did Corvette K225 and a picture called Johnny Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and Doughboys in Ireland, you know, and Gung Ho over at Universal. Great epics like that.
Why'd they call you Pig Iron?
I used to go around collecting garbage, and the kids started calling me Piggy. Well, I got pretty strong, even those cans around, so after a while I started to beat the town kids up. Finally, they stopped calling it. Then when I started fighting, they called me Pig Iron, which I didn't mind.
I see you've been in the brig 4 times, and always for the same thing, fighting.
Well, you've got to be tough to be a Marine, sir. All right, you guys know what we have to do. I'll make the assault and you cover me. If my luck is bad, Kurt, you're next. Then Larry, Frankie, and Tedrow. So long, fellas. There goes nothing.
Then I went to RKO and did the westerns, the Zane Grey westerns. And then they called me over to the old Selznick studio to test on G.I. Joe. And of course, Bill Wellman was a mighty name in the business. Bill set it up as though they were actually, you know, filming within the picture. He got everything all arranged like that. And I did the scene with Burgess Meredith, and Bill said, that's it.
Right.
He just incorporated the test right into the picture.
Dear Mrs. Smith, your son died bravely today on the... That's why I feel like a murderer. If only we could create something good out of all this energy. And all these men. They're the best, Ernie. The best.
Bill said, cut. And I looked over behind the camera, and he was sitting there crying. So I figured either it was very, very bad, or else he was very moved.
Mitch was not someone prepared to become a star. Mitch was only prepared to be whoever it was he was. And if that was acceptable, that was okay. And if it wasn't, that was okay too.
You know, Don Darrow, it'd give me a great deal of personal pleasure to break every bone in your body. Goofing off down there was one thing. Up here it's another. Now get out of here before I kick the... Wait! Report to Sergeant Warnicki.
Tell him you're going to dig latrines for every man in this company from here to Rome. Nice, deep ones.
He has none of the nonsense of having to feel his part and go around doing exactly what that person would be doing and staying in that mood and everything. He can just turn it on.
I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time in training, but my feeling is that it's like going to school to learn to be tall. I don't think that it's possible.
When I was given Out of the Past, it was such a marvelous role, and I was surprised that the studio gave it to me because I was not that experienced. So when I first worked with Bob, the first day, he said to me, are you on your marks? And I said, I think so, you know, and I looked down and he said, no, you're not on your marks. You're supposed to be straddling. And I didn't know, you know, and he was so helpful to me.
You remember Kathy, don't you?
Yeah, I remember, Kathy. Sit down.
Kathy's back in the fold now.
You bare your heart to him, Kathy?
I couldn't help it, Jeff.
Well, that settles things.
Does it?
It's working for me.
Their first day together, Kirk was a method actor from New York, and Bob was an actor, you know, kick-around actor for many years here. And Bob was very underplayed. Kirk decided that he would underplay Bob, which is impossible, of course. And by the end of the rehearsal, they were both on the floor. And so he eventually gave up, and they worked so beautifully together because their styles were so different.
Wait a minute. I'm not framing any woman.
When did you reform? I wouldn't try it, Whit. You're out of shape. Besides, it's not a frame. She shot him.
He was going to kill you.
You see, Whit, self-defense. A cinch to beat. She might not even have to do time.
I'll say you killed him. They'll believe me.
Do you believe her?
He has empathy for people, and yet he is never a crybaby. And he won't let you really be a crybaby either. He's an average guy, and with Robert Mitchum, it's Dorothy. They have a family.
I had no idea at all what he did for a living. There's such a separation, and our home life was so normal. You know, the people who came to our house who were actors, you know, Monroe and Russell and Grant, these various people, they were friends of the family. The first time I guess I really realized what it was all about was in 1956, when I was a young teenager. And there was Elvis Presley at our house having roast beef and playing the piano and singing songs with my dad, and yeah, that, to me, was a star.
Howard Hughes, he owned RKO, and at RKO we had a lot of fun.
We didn't have a caste system there like they had at Metro, for instance. It was rather like a club, and you saw the same people all the time. And there was a great camaraderie, and you had basically the same crew all the time, and you knew pretty much everybody on the lot, and you knew where you stood, and you knew fairly well what your future was and what your present conditions were. My place in the business was, I call it, pounded to death by gorillas. And it's illustrated like this. I'm alone on the stage, and suddenly an enormous gorilla looms up behind me, and boom, pounds me on top of the head like this. And he repeats this, and he pounds and pounds and pounds until I finally just am pounded onto the floor. And the gorilla, by this time in exhaustion at his efforts, collapses on top of me. Now, little girl in a pinafore comes in from stage left, and she says, he's around here somewhere, I know, I can smell him. Because I haven't shaved, I haven't bathed through the whole ordeal. And she looks around, and she finally sees the gorilla, and she peels him back, and then lifts me up to the center of the stage. And there I am, battered and beaten, And she throws her arms around me and looks straight into the camera. She says, I don't care what you say, I like them. And that's what I did for a living. Anytime the writers were stuck for another, they turn around and hit Mitchum.
Sometimes he gets a little testy with high-minded producers or directors, and especially if they're trying to push the other actors around or the crew. He will very calmly go out of his way to plan something to make them fall on their face.
I made a picture, his kind of woman, with Bob. Bob wanted coffee on the set, and they would bring coffee for him, and he says, no, I want it for everybody. And they'd say, well, everybody's not going to have it, producer, whoever it might be. And this was a huge picture, as a matter of fact. And Bob would get in his car. He said, I'm going to go for a cup of coffee. Now, they say, we have coffee on the set. He said, no, I don't like this coffee. I'm going to go for a cup of coffee. 2 hours later, he would come back. And he didn't say, I demand you have coffee on the set for everybody. But every morning he did that, and for about 3 or 4 days, they finally got the message, and they had coffee on the set for everybody.
It's very difficult to get him angry. He doesn't like to get angry because if and when he ever does get angry, it's going to be terrible.
Mitch never holds back. He always says exactly what he thinks, and he always pretty much does what he wants, and by and large, does it without hurting other people. If he hurts anybody, it's perhaps himself. For instance, the marijuana situation where he was caught and jailed.
When Bob was arrested, he was as surprised as the police. The police were after someone else. And they all but said, run, you know, and he wouldn't leave his friends, and so he was arrested.
He understood the irony of the whole thing, of his being picked out when everybody around him, including probably half the guys that arrested him, were smoking marijuana.
Mr. Hughes wanted to fight it, and because he knew a great deal more about it than I did. And I said, it's too late, Howard. You know, it's already in the papers. Therefore, it's true. So if I beat it, it's going to embarrass a lot of people. It's going to hurt a lot of people. And I said, nothing to me.
He had served 54 days or something like that. And he asked them, please, I will pose for you. I will swab the floors. You know, we can stage anything you want at the jail, but I don't want any, you know, my children to see, you know, and they were good about that.
What people forget, you know, is that the whole thing was thrown out. It was resubmitted, and it was stricken from the record because it was not a true case.
A lot of people thought it was going to, you know, be his ruination, but everybody that knew him loved him and stuck by him, and when he came out, the audience loved him just as much, if not more.
When he flashed on the screen in Rachel the Stranger, the audience did stand up and say bravo, merely because he was the kind of a guy that he was.
There is no persona to Mitch. Mitch doesn't put on another person that so many of us do when we're in the public eye.
He's the real thing. This is no guy pretending to be a tough guy or playing intelligent or smoldering to indicate sexuality. I think he's whole. He's whole.
He reads constantly. And not only he reads, but he quotes, which I can't do. I read it, and 2 weeks later, you tell me the name of the book, and I think, huh? Have I? But he has a mind. He's a very bright man.
Mitch has a photographic memory. Takes him 1 second to memorize something.
He'd say, give me those 3 pages. And the guy would turn him out of the script and give him 3 pages, and this is what he'd do. He'd look at the thing. And he had it.
He plays the kind of a guy that's so cool that nothing could rattle him, and he probably never really read a novel, and I think Robert Mitchum could write novels.
Enjoy the view?
Well, it's not the Taj Mahal or the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, but it's not bad.
My name's Trumbull, Mr.
I think that actors in principally entertain. And I remember as a child going to the movies and coming out and finding out it was still day or it was night or it was raining, and I had been totally transported. It's an escape. And if people are good in their craft, they can aid in that escape. They can create that illusion.
Julie,
I'm listening.
look, I know this is a little abrupt. I don't carry a lot of credentials around with me, but I'm fairly honest. I've done a lot of things in my life. Running a plantation's hard work.
I'm not afraid of hard work.
You're not kidding, are you?
Howard Hughes, as far as scripts were concerned, he cared more about the clothes you were going to wear or the kind of publicity campaign it was going to have.
Howard actually would say, well, listen, Bob, I want you to wear a brown suit in this picture because the girl's got green eyes. And in that next picture, he said, you wear a blue suit because the girl's got red hair, things like that. You know? But I pretty much play the same character, and they just switch leading ladies. I never found any disadvantages in working with Howard Hughes. I regarded him as a friend, and I trusted him. The one thing, if he said it, that was it. It was true. His word was solid. I was there 10 years, and the contract was up, and I went on to do other things.
I found him! This is him! You got your nerve, leaving this kid running around a crummy place like this. What kind of a father are you, anyway?
The worst?
Well, it's nice you admit it.
I knew Marilyn as a person and as a friend, and I learned that in working with each of the women with whom I have worked, and they have the common problems that everyone has. And they're far more vulnerable because they don't protect themselves with that sort of shield of which distances you from them.
He does carry with him an extra knowledge of womankind because of his sensitivity and his perception. It's the getting away from the outside and really piercing the center. Therefore, he is able to know woman better than most men, I think.
Just how many kinds of fool are you?
I'm not your kind.
What are you, Weston's kind? I just don't see it. Treating you the way he did.
He didn't treat me like a tramp. He treated me like a woman. So he made a mistake. Maybe you do a foolish thing yourself.
I wouldn't leave a kid to die. Or a woman. Even if she was a tramp.
I suppose that Mitch is somewhat of a chauvinist. I think that he thinks that, you know, the man's place is at the head of the table and the head of the family, and he says what happens, and everybody else kind of toes the mark. The underside of that is, I think that Mitch is also the protector. Always there to guide, to make sure that the woman is safe.
Where are you taking me?
Home.
Mom.
He's among a very small handful of particularly men actors who project intelligence, tremendous sexuality, danger, vulnerability hidden except for brief chosen moments, and mystery.
Mitch is one of the few romantic leading men whose most memorable, I think, and greatest films have been when he has played a despicable character.
The heavy is most enjoyable because you inspire reactions in people.
This is concrete.
John made a sin. John told a lie.
The Lord's a-talking to me now. He's a-saying, a liar is an abomination before mine eyes. Speak, boy, where's it hid?
It's not my dough. It's not my dough.
The dog.
I just enjoyed the experience of working with Charles Lawton at Night of the Hunter. I liked the sort of stylization. I wanted to take it right straight down the road as the book was. But Charles wouldn't have that. He said he didn't want women snatching their children off the street at my appearance because he said it would be really too compelling if I, played it as it was written, right straight down the line. Well, I've had other directors who would tell you what to think. He said, no, he's thinking rather boring, It's in that case, you're playing the director. These are directors who, in principle, are frustrated actors, and they impart their interpretation to you and expect you to do it, complete with their mannerisms, I suppose, and their speech impediments and whatever.
I think that he did a lot of pictures directing himself, but when he had a director who cared enough not to be intimidated with Bob and to say, come out and show the emotions that you have, he was delighted with a director like that.
I know that in working with Johnny Huston, that you always felt very comfortable because, whatever the situation was, John had been there. He was a great appreciator. I think the only time that John ever said anything to me was once I looked beyond the camera after he cut, and I looked beyond the camera. Usually he was like that. But he said, I think even more, kid. And I said, really, John? He said, I think even more. And I knew exactly what he meant, so we did it again, even more.
When I knew I was going to do Heaven Knows Mr. Allison with Bob, I was a bit intimidated by the reputation that had gone before him. I thought, oh, I wonder what I'm in for here. And of course, the unexpected happened. We were absolutely got on like a house on fire, and I found myself sitting on the pink sands of the beautiful little island of Tobago, and we were watching the phosphorescence in the waves. And he was so poetic and so appreciative of the beauty of it all.
We had such a rapport, we could phone it in, actually. She could be in Switzerland, I could be here, and we could read back and forth to each other, each knowing exactly how the other is going to respond.
In the Sundowners, he was marvelous. He was really wonderful.
You know something, Art? You're built the way a woman ought to be built.
Just find it out.
No, I noticed it a couple of times before.
It was a memorable scene when he comes home late at night, rather drunk, and she's been saving money and putting them in a glass jar, putting it in a glass jar, because all she wanted in life was a roof over her head instead of a canvas truck. And he has to own up to her that he's lost all the savings at the turn of a coin.
I don't know what to say. I looked at you both, you and Sean. You were just like strangers. I wanted you to have what you wanted, but God forgive me, I must have hated you both. I just wanted to get away from you, get drunk, get the taste out of my mouth. That's all I meant to do now, was just get drunk. That's all I meant to do.
As technically brilliant as he is, and there's a tremendous amount of work involved being a technically perfect actor, hitting your mark, knowing where the light is, all that stuff is second nature to him. He knows exactly what he's doing as a film actor, and he's not self-involved.
They got on extremely well, but whereas Cary Grant, he was very vain about his appearance and his clothes and so on and so on. Bob was never like that. He says, do I wear this? Okay. What do I wear with it? Okay. You know, appearing to be uninterested, whereas, of course, he was extremely interested in what he was wearing, but he never showed it. He was, the most unvain man I think I've ever met.
I don't think there's a self-involved bone in Mitch's body. I don't think he cares how you shoot him. I don't think he cares where the camera is. I don't think he cares where the lights are. I think he only cares at that very moment of actually doing the scene and allowing it to be an experience that he's going through.
Look, Katie, maybe you can get away with dog poisoning. Beating up on a little drifter, like Diane Taylor. Don't push your luck with me.
Say, she's getting to be almost as juicy as your wife, ain't she?
You runt.
I enjoyed it, actually. And I remember I tried to get out of it, and I was talking to Greg, Greg was the producer, too. And I said, you know, if you can't find anybody else, and I said, but I really would hope that you'd find someone else. And they said, like who? And I was stuck.
The biggest scene in the film was a rape scene that took place on a houseboat in the dead of night. And Mitch, of course, played a part that he was spectacular at, which was the smiling heavy. It was the last scene shot in the film, and it was a scene that was very, very difficult really to rehearse because there was no way you could really do it. You had to kind of know what the scene was about and then shoot it. And hopefully shoot it once because it was so physically violent.
Oh, now, come on. You ain't that scared. You come right down to it, what is there to be scared of?
Now, look, you're not a foolish man. You're very clever. You never make mistakes. You don't take chances. If you touch me, you'll go back to prison for life.
You want to make a little bet on that?
But you will. I'm not like Nancy. I'm not afraid to testify. I swear it. You've got to believe me. I'm not afraid.
And you're a lawyer's wife. Don't you understand that with consent, there are no charges against me?
As the scene progressed, and he grabbed me, and we hit the door for him to push me through the door into the hallway. The door was supposed to be preset so that it would, you know, unlatch. And accidentally, of course, someone had shut it all the way, which, of course, did not stop Mitch because we were supposed to go through the door. So my body became the battering ram that went through the door. Prior to that, he hit his fist through the kitchen cabinet, and one of the cabinets had been preset so that it would shatter. And of course, he didn't hit that cabinet at all. He hit a cabinet that was not preset, so that his hand was already covered with blood. By the time he used my body to get through the door, my back was covered with blood. And as we got into the stateroom, and I was crying and pleading with him, and he started to hit me, I think that Mitch just lost it. The scene was over, the director said cut, and we just both kept going. We were kind of caught up in the scene, and the director said cut again, and we just kept going, and finally they literally came over and physically stopped Mitch. And it was as though both of us woke up, and Mitch realized that I was really hurt, and took me in his arms and started to rock me and say, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
For me, I thought he was always rather an embarrassed actor. He always seemed to me to be doing it out of, not sideways, if you see what I mean. It was a sideways, oblique way he approached his work.
One of his very best performances was Ryan's Daughter, the picture he made with David Lean. He did a beautiful job of playing an Irish character, a beautiful job of the dialect, the accent, a beautiful job of being suppressed individual.
I get a call from David Lean and Robert Bolt, and about Ryan's daughter. And I thought, well, surely there must be some Irish actors out of work. You know, they could pick one of those. And I told him that. And David said, no, we rather had, you know, decided that. He said, do you have any other plans? He said, which would preclude your appearing? And I said, as a matter of fact, yes, I had planned suicide. And he said, well, he said, if you would first, he said, do this wretched film of ours, he said, I'd be happy to stand the expense of your burial. I said, okay, I'll be there, okay.
David is quite daring often in his casting and quite likes to cast against type. One of the points that perhaps David wanted to make was that you can have the physical kind of wherewithal to look like you're a great He-Man, but when it comes to the crunch, or the silk, or the linen, you're not quite as cracking as you were made out to be. I think that David wasn't very comfortable directing the love scene. He used to get his cigarette in his holder very tense and tight, and he used to wiggle his foot, which is always an English sign of stiff upper lip and tenseness, if you wiggle your foot and smoke jaggedly like that. And now, in this particular scene, Robert, call me Bob, what I want you to do is to make love to Sarah here, and then I want you to really, what do you want me to do, David? Come? But I'd like you to do that. I'd like you to come. You want me to come fast? Yes. I'd like you to come fast, if that's at all possible. Right. Action. Are we rolling? Right. Action. Robert, would you, Sarah, and Mitchum would kind of do what he was told, you know, and then just before he came, he'd say, honey, you've creased my nightie, you know, just to tell David that he's behaving rather sillily over this.
David spends a lot of time staring into space, and I imagine if you should ask him what the picture's going to look like, it'd be like asking Michelangelo, what's the ceiling going to look like when you're finished with it, you know, because he has a vision. He is a great visionary, but it's very difficult to explain. And he puts it all together
With this ring I thee
perfectly,
wed,
actually.
in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. You'd never be unfaithful to me, would you? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked that. No, that's a rotten question for a man to ask his wife. What is this? What do you want?
Not you.
Well, then get out. Go on, get out.
Shut up, Shaughnessy.
We're waiting for him!
You've been tried and found guilty. You're the informer.
Take my arm.
I saw a certain wisdom and a certain compassion that he often managed to hide very well, but nevertheless it was looming and luminous within his performances. An extraordinary quality that sets aside acting and brings out something quite magical.
He knew people, the common people. And I think that's one thing that endears him to most people, because he gives that feeling.
Sheila, look, it's gonna be all right up there in New Hampshire. The fellow I'm seeing today, he told me he could square it for me. Now we'll get the hell out of here, okay?
I'm not complaining.
Eddie. Eddie. It's morning.
We had a British director doing typically, I mean, an American picture about the Boston underworld, you know, the Boston mob, as it were. And I found it very enjoyable. We had a lot of technical assistants on the picture, a lot of Boston hooligans who were with us on the show.
Well, how'd it come out?
It went fine, just fine. He had 5 M16s, just like you said.
Now that does it, huh?
Does what?
You know, you said you wanted a reason? That thing we talked about, that thing up in New Hampshire there. You said you needed a reason?
Ah, that. You making any money?
Not exactly. If you were to ask me, I'd have to tell you I'm not having a very good day.
He used to drink scotch in a water glass with no ice, with just a little plain tap water as a chaser. And he drank it like you drink coffee. He just would sip slowly on it all day, and he would just, you know, he'd never pass out or he never got falling down drunk. He'd just reach this certain level and he'd sit and talk all day, and you would be fascinated. He could tell the most incredible range of stories.
He comes from that kind of good old boy environment. You know, all the big, I mean, the John Hustons and the John Waynes and the, you know, they were all these two-fisted guys. That really didn't have anything to do with acting or anything else. It's you know, what guys did then.
Whenever he drinks, as in my own particular case, and we're both from the same genetic structure, comes from a desperation of wanting to achieve a calm and peaceful stream.
Mitchum was always tired. You always felt that Mitchum had seen it all. There was a cynicism in Mitchum's performances as a private eye, but you knew that wasn't the whole story. I think you knew there was more going on than what he was letting you see.
The detective genre, Humphrey Bogart, Dick Powell, several others, Bob seemed to care more. The life that he had in the picture seemed to mean more. He was more vulnerable as a person. He showed emotion more. He was hurt more, and he really hurt when he hurt.
You were surrounded by people who were pretty much had run out of hope. And the character fits right into that particular milieu, and I liked it.
I want you to find my Velma. I ain't seen her in 7 years.
I'm looking for a girl, Velma.
She was the only tramp that ever worked for Mike that he didn't use like a mattress.
Where to?
My place?
What for? You got everything we need with you.
I've been slapped, scratched, punched, knocked unconscious, drugged, and shot at looking for you, Velma, so quit trying to make a milkshake out of my insides, will you?
The extraordinary thing you know about him is that he attracts violence a little bit. Even in his total passive behavior, he will attract violence like bees to a honeypot.
Mitchum never liked to fight. He was capable of it. He could take care of him. He's like John Wayne. He could take care of himself against anybody. He was very solidly built, but he didn't want to get mixed up with anybody.
The end of the day had come, and we were all in the bar of the hotel where Bob was living. And there were pretty tough-looking characters in the bar. And one of them said, "I could knock you flying." So Bob presented his chin. He said, "Go on, hit it." The fellow said, "Okay," and he hit him. Bob just blinked, Then the fellow said, "I'm going to hit you again." And Bob said, "Whoa there, my friend, just a minute. Do you mind if I defend myself this time?" "Nah, go ahead." So the fellow swung, and before he knew where he was, Bob had hit him on the chin. He slithered across the floor, through a glass door, down a flight of steps, and into the garden. Bob turned to the barman, who was bug-eyed at this, and said, "Drinks all around on me, and a drink especially for the gentleman who seems to have fallen down the stairs."
I think the ideal would be to be very successful at your job and be totally unrecognizable on the street. I think that's the ultimate, you know. I should think. Play midgets or mushrooms or, you know, anything that's as different and as far apart from your personal and physical being as possible.
Mitch just simply never played the movie star game. I mean, can you picture the head of some studio saying to Mitchum, "Okay, now look, kid, I want you to go to this premiere tonight, and you go and pick up so-and-so, and you take her and dress up and try to look good and act, you know, like a movie star." I mean, Mitch would probably either politely say no or punch him out. It would be one or the other.
If anybody tried to get pretentious with him, a reporter, an interviewer, he would really put them down, and very hard. He didn't give a damn about their feelings.
I tell you, I got off a plane one time in London, and you know the British press, and I wound up at in the Dorchester Hotel with one of the British journalists, and he said, "Hey, how do you like London?" I said, "I love it. You know, I enjoy it very much." And, well, he said, "What don't you like about it?" I said, "Well, there's nothing in the particular that I dislike." I said, "If they put parking meters on Grosvenor Square, it wants me not, you know." And I said, I'm coming from someplace that I like less usually, and I've got the best of it here. I'm in the West End. I got a lot of friends here. There are good restaurants. I enjoy working here, and I enjoy the people. And it didn't sit well. He said, "Well, if you could change anything about it, what would you change?" I said, "I might suggest that you move it a bit closer to the airport." And he scribbles that down. He said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, I told you, you know, while I enjoy the refresher course driving in from Heathrow, I said, I'm rather anxious to get in and get on with it because I like it here." The next day, somebody showed me the copy in the press and said, "How do you like London?" We respectfully inquired of Mr. Mitchum. "Too goddamn far from the airport," growled the burly Yank. What can you do?
When I started to work with Bob on the picture, I was concerned with trying to get on film this sense of a character who'd been sort of marinated by life, which is the feeling you get when you look at Mitchum's face. I mean, you have the sense of a man who's seen it all and been through it all. And that's the kind of character he played. Mitchum in Japan is probably one of the great comedies of all time. I mean, first of all, he's 14 times the size of any Japanese, and he would bang into the doors and ceilings of all of the rooms.
You have to walk on a crouch because you keep banging your head all the time. And, you know, the rooms are measured by tatamis, you know, like a 10 tatami room or a 6 tatami room. And in a lot of the old buildings, of course, the doorways were relatively low. Takakura Ken, with whom I worked mostly there, was a great gentleman, and I never sat down on the set.
How's your brother?
My brother?
Yeah. Ken, your brother, how is he?
Why do you ask?
Because I have to see him.
What can I do for you? I need to ask you a favor.
What are you talking about? Eiko is not Ken's sister. She's his wife.
I found him to be like a very, very powerful and lazy horse that wants to walk as slow as possible and will get away with doing as little as possible. You used to really have to push him. he won't offer the full emotional nature of a performance. At least he didn't for me, until you went after it a little bit.
If you can forgive me, then surely you can forgive Eiko. You are greatly loved and respected by all your family.
He's full of feeling, which he just keeps at bay most of the time, and every once in a while there's an opportunity in the acting for it to come out.
This sort of macho thing, you know, about him being so tough, well, it's partly true, but underneath all that, there's a gentleness to him that you would never expect.
You ready to marry, then? Some strong, healthy man with nothing to be ashamed of?
I want to marry Ivan.
Ivan? My son, Ivan? Let me kiss you. Just that once. Before you become my daughter.
When you start with nothing and you're prepared to end up with a nothing, you have nothing to lose. And it gives you a basis to be true to yourself. And that's the way he is. He is true to himself.
I guess I see myself sitting back in some hobo jungle in Anniston, Alabama, saying, let me tell you about when I used to be a movie actor. When I say, yeah.
The public knowledge of him may think of him as a sleepy-eyed creature who really didn't care about anything. All untrue. He cares tremendously.
It can be very subtle to a point of being invisible. And I think that as the years pass, we perhaps will see more clearly that invisibleness that he gives on screen.
I don't know how to analyze what Mitchum's appeal is. It's there, it's immediate, you can feel it, it's palpable.
I think he just is. I think that's his power as an actor, and I think that's his power as a person.
When I think about the films I have seen in my whole lifetime and my sense of who's really going to count, there are going to be a handful that are in that time capsule. And for my money, Mitchum is going to be one of them.